When I was a boy, my brother would always ask me which way you're gonna go. Will you go with the righteous or will you go with the damned? This is a story about the path I chose.
After years as an acclaimed actor, Idris Elba has released his first film as a director, Yardie. One Extra went down to the premiere at the British Film Institute in London and held an exclusive Q&A with Idris and the stars of the film. Okay, so first let me introduce, we all know him from the cult classic Kidulthood. We might have seen him in The Bill, Maze Runner, Lee Daniels, The Butler. Please make some noise for Ameen. Our second guest from the land of wood and water. She is from Jamaica. She's on Jamaican TV series Thicker Than Water and the teen drama Real Friends. Please make some noise for Shantol Jackson. And this guy, I don't know who this guy is. Making his directorial debut was the man that we saw in The Avengers. He died in the first 5 minutes. It's all good, though. It's all good. He won our hearts to Stringer Bell in The Wire. An amazing performance as Nelson Mandela in The Long Walk to Freedom. He played the obsessive detective Luther. I mean, too many credits to name. Please make some noise for Idris Elba, OBE. Let's start with Idris. What an amazing film, Yardie.
Thank you, bro. Thank you very much.
What made you take this book on as your first film to direct?
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm thank you for coming and watching the movie. When I was probably about 18, 17, 19, somewhere in that area, I read this book. I'm not a big reader. I don't really like to read too many books. And Yardie was the first book I read back to back, just straight. It was a book that was being handed around the community as something to read. It was relatable, coming from where I came from, coming from a sound system background, coming from all of that. And I'm not Jamaican, West African, but just the fact that, you know, at the time, West Indian culture was the dominant culture, Jamaican culture being the precedent of that. And everybody wanted to be Jamaican, you know what I mean? Nobody wanted to be called Idris Kuna Elba when, you know what I mean, Devante was down the road, you know what I mean? It's just, that wasn't working. So when Yardie came out, it just became very, very, very quickly a popular read, especially a young black men. Because of the D character. So that's why when it came across my desk as something to direct, I was excited about that. I was excited because I felt like I could definitely tap into my source memory. I could tap into my own experience and people that I grew up with to try and visualize the film, you know?
And continue, action.
Mel, you told me a really interesting story about how you and Idris first talked about this film.
The world knows that story now.
Yeah. Tell her, I mean, for those that may not have heard the story.
Good evening as well, guys, man. It's good to see so many faces. I know it. I was basically on my way to LA and I saw Idris in the elevator. Lift. All right, yeah. I always mess up that bit. I saw him in the elevator and I just turned around. He was like, Mel, what's going on? And we hadn't seen each other in a long time. We hadn't seen each other since, I think, around the Kidulthood times, where he was one of the people that encouraged me. He goes, look, man, they're loving us over there. Why don't you go and, try it out? And then we got on the plane and, he goes, you're going to LA, I'm going to LA. And then we started talking about our families, my father, his father, being first generation immigrants, our fathers, and then the book and what it meant to him, if I knew about it. And I kind of peripherally heard about it through my family members, but he said, this is a great opportunity for us to do that Goodfellas style film, the Godfather style film. And he's like, I'm going to send it to your agents and let me know what you think. And I said, mate, forget all the agent talk. Let's do it right now. Put down that visor, give me the iPad, and I'll read it right now. And I did. And I shook hands with him, made sure I took a photo so he wouldn't forget.
First class can be bait, innit? Man's just like trying to get me. I was
like, bro, come on, man, let's do this. And it was a very serendipitous flight. I think to myself, Al Pacino was on that flight. Wow. And anybody that knows the original book, when you turn it over, it says, Scarface is Yardie's the Jamaican Scarface. And so that was a real kind of, happy accident moment for me.
Shantol, what was it like working with Idris? What is Idris like as a director?
Hello. Idris not to gas him up, I'm not gassing you for nothing, but he's really an amazing director, and I think what contributes to this is the fact that he's such a brilliant actor, and so he understands the actor's process, and so because he knew exactly what he wanted to see, so he could say, this is what I want you to do, this is what I need to get done, but he also would allow us to do what felt natural in the moment. So I talk about this all the time. In the kitchen scene, when Amel just like threw everything down, I'm gonna say, yeah, I go mash up my house. He actually said to Idris, I feel like just mashing up everything. And Idris like, yo, do what feels natural, go ahead with that. And I appreciated that. So we had 2 cuts going into edits. He'd say, okay, do this, first take, second take. What do you feel like doing? What feels natural? What would Yvonne do in this moment?
Amel, how did you find getting an accent?
It was one of those ones when, I know the Jamaican crowd, and I know the Jamaican crowd. And you know what's worse? Not the actual Jamaican back home, London Jamaicans. Because everyone feels like, because they don't really speak it, but they kind of speak it, but their parents speak it, they feel like they've got complete ownership over it. Like, nah, I would have done it like this, So I took it very seriously. And so I went to Jamaica, and I spent like 6 weeks there. My auntie Hazel, what's up, auntie? You happy about the shout-outs? I've been giving her loads of shout-outs. Shout me out, And she took me around everywhere, and I've always gone to like country, my family from like Clarendon and Mandeville. I was in Kingston, and she took me around everywhere, and I felt like this. I didn't know the spirituality of Jamaica so as much as I now know, and that really fed me internally, and then in turn with the accent in the end, it just became something that you just end up refining. But once you feel like the person, once you're in that mental space, you're good. And then Shantol and I, as soon as she got the part, I said to her, look, can I start writing to you, as Dee would write? And we wrote back and forth for about 4 or 5 weeks until she came to London, and that really helped us feel connected. And I felt more confident about the accent because she would help me with it as well. And Sheldon Shepherd, I mimicked his accent quite a lot.
Deliver the goods to Rico. When it is done, you let me know. Yeah, I'm in London.
Shantol, as the resident Jamaican on set, were you like... wait, were you pulling up people if they got things wrong or if their accent was slipping out into South London?
I'd never do that. No. But it's very important to me for it to be very authentic. It was very important to Idris for it to be authentic. And I remember being in the room and he'd say, would you say this? How would you say this? And I'd say, probably a little different, and he gave me the opportunity, and I'm sure Sheldon and Evie as well, to be as authentic as possible with the language, with our mannerisms, and I appreciated that, just being authentic.
Idris, was there any nerves in putting out this film? Did you worry a little bit that you might not get it right culturally, or you might miss things? Like, what was going through your mind?
I mean, Yardie is a very coveted book, as I said before, and there's a generational gap, though, in the terms that, most of the audience in this room was probably not even born back then when this film was set, but they know a good Jamaican accent when they hear one, you get me? And they know that the culture is rich and is proud, very proud. And especially coming from a West African background, this is my first feature. I felt like I had to earn the right to be able to tell this story by some way, shape or form. So I wasn't allowed to make silly, small mistakes. And I'm sure there are, some members of the audience might say, yeah, well, you didn't get that right. But the truth is that the intention from all of us as filmmakers was to get it completely right, to get it as authentic as possible. As possible when you're talking about a film, which is, an imagination of a writer and filmmakers. But also, as an actor, I had to have the best actors in the world to come and work with me. You know what I mean? If there was any moment that these actors took you out of the movie from their acting, that would be a definite look at me as a director. Do you know what I mean? I can be good in a shit movie, but as a director, I cannot have any shit acting, period. You know what I mean? No disrespect, but, it's a case of just having that. Everyone needed to be very authentic. I was very blessed with my actors because, Mel told you the journey, but they were dedicated. This was not like a big money movie for them. It wasn't like they're gonna get paid forever and ever, amen. It was like, we're here, Idris, we believe in the vision. This is a culturally rich film. It comes from culturally rich stock, as in the book. And here we were about to, pull it together. So all eyes on us. Not to mention when we were in Rose Gardens in Kingston, and you've got fourth generations of Jamaicans in the building talking about, you want me to be an extra? For what? So what? Who are them clothes there? What for what? And then, like we explain what the story is, and they say, but you know what Yardie means to us? It don't mean nothing good. And say, yeah, we understand that. And to be able to sort of be very confident and say, listen, what we're doing is going to be, is going to amplify the culture as opposed to step on it and depress it and make it look stupid. You know what I mean? Hopefully that's what I achieved.
And I mean, the soundtrack was amazing. I know that we know you're a sound man, like you shelling down clubs all over the world. How important was it for you to have that the sound element in it?
The sound element was definitely important. It's big in the book. It's a big part of Dee's journey. It's part of his sort of like, it's actually part of how he manages to deal with his emotions. You know what I mean? Like in this day and age, we've got young kids that are getting into all sorts of shit, and half of them use either some version of rap or drill or whatever to try and manage their emotions. It's what they use. It's their art form. And D, back then, it was his sound system.
I'm a dreadlock rasta, no imposter. Big up on my brethren, sticks and dagger. I'm a little brethren, rude white hanging. We get no girl left on the weekend.
And for the DJs in the room, sound boys in the room, that back then, if you was in a sound, that was like big up, you know what I mean? And so to have that as a component in the film and get it wrong would have been a no-no for me.
I want to make a film about our culture. I want you to be real, just be really real.
And I'm not sure how it sounded in here, but if it sounded the way I designed it, you felt like you walked into a shebeen and got down. You know what I mean? Mans was trying to pull out some red stripes in here. Something's going down, you know what I mean? But that was important to me, and I think that the music is like the third character in the film.
Amel, did you see the comparisons with D, and especially with what Idris was talking about in terms of what's going on today, and the comparisons between drill and soundboy culture back then, and also even in terms of his trauma from seeing his brother die? And I mean, there's a lot of young people today that are going through that trauma. It's not diagnosed or anything, and they're going through a lot of mental problems as well. Did you see that in D when you was playing that character?
Yeah, man, it was one of the things I focused on first. All his behavior stems from watching this. I call it scar before I call it trauma. He watches his brother murdered and he doesn't say anything, and so he grows up with this sense of wanting to prove himself. Internally, this was my thought. He grows up thinking, I'm a coward for not saying anything, because he's stunted by fear. And so he says to himself, any situation he gets himself into, he's just gonna deal with it.
Look at yourself. The grief never left you. You're still like a mad dog.
It's almost as though, for me, he's chasing his own death, and also chasing, am I like Jerry? Can I forgive, Or am I like King Fox, and am I this traumatic experience?
We got a question over here.
Hi Idris, very much enjoyed the film. The thing that stood out for me, and I want to know how intentional this was. Your leading lady, beautiful, dark-skinned woman, and for me as a dark-skinned woman, it's important. And what was really poignant here is that she was slightly darker than him. You rarely see that. Was that intentional?
So when it was written and the way we wrote the script and the way I personally approach casting and characters is that I didn't put complexion or how they look. D is D, Yvonne is Yvonne. What was definitely intentional was her place as a woman, as a strong female character. That was intentional. A strong female character. D comes to England, he doesn't turn anywhere else but Yvonne. And Yvonne is essentially his beacon. In the book, the female characters very much the victims in a few cases. That's not a diss, that's just the way that book was written back then. But in the film, we changed that. Yvonne had to have a voice. And as soon as I met Shantol, that was it.
For me personally, great choice. She's beautiful, and for me, it's great to see her.
You got any more questions? Anyone else want to ask a question? There's one up there.
This is a question for all three of you. What was the biggest gift and the biggest challenge with doing the project?
I mean, there's a few gifts for me. and sincerely, one, working with someone that I've respected for many years, studied, tried to figure out how do I maneuver, and I'm a fan of first. That was a very big gift for me. Second, like having a film that like I get to connect to my Jamaican roots and get to, you know, learn the language, learn the culture, have an understanding of who I am. And I've changed as a person as a result of the movie. And then just to come home to London and have a film in London, and I've been working in America for like the better half of 10 years. The challenges, there was no challenge to mention in that way. Like it was such a growing experience, you know, the work. And Idris, you know, what I love about him is he trusted me. A lot of directors micromanage, and perhaps as an actor-director, he might have micromanaged more. Like there was times where I would say, just show me what you want me to do. And he did it 1 or 2 times, but I looked at him, I was like, fuck, that's really good, mate. Maybe don't do that anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it was a blessing for me in my life and career. A1 project, A1 life moment.
The gift for me. The gift for me was really just the opportunity. You know, I'm from a small island, Jamaica. The culture is rich. It's a rich country, but we don't get opportunities of this magnitude all the time. This film brought me to London for the first time. Working with Ameel and Idris, it was just amazing. So the opportunity, generally, just to be here, be a part of this production, working with this crew. And the challenge for me was the love scene because it was my first intimate scene. So I remember like a week before I went to Idris, I was like, okay,
sorry.
You know, how is this going to work? Like, tell me step by step what I need to do so I can prepare myself mentally for this. And I remember like right before the scene, he came into my room and he was like, you know, most times when people are about to do scenes like this, they have a drink. I was like, okay. And then like a minute later, no, I have to. It's so amazing. A minute later, his assistant came in with a bottle of Bajan rum. I was like, yeah! And right before that, Ameel bought me wine.
Don't tell them
because,
that.
No, but it's true. Listen, they were so protective. It's true though, but they were so protective of me. I appreciate that so much, you know? And they knew I was nervous. I was freaking out, right? And Ameel was like, come down to my room after your scene, you know, come down. And I did his dressing room. No, he wasn't in the room. No, it's nothing like that. He wasn't in the room. There was just a bottle of wine and a glass and like the
Shantol hasn't had media training, guys.
The runner was like, you can have a drink. And then, you know, I had
Should we edit this
drink.
part out?
No!
We can edit this out.
You shouldn't.
No, you sure?
No, you really shouldn't. Because I wasn't intoxicated or anything.
You wasn't, okay. She knew what she was doing.
No. It wasn't like that. But they knew I was freaking out, right? And they were like, just be calm. He closed the set. So it's really just me and Ameel and the cameraman, and Idris even stayed in a next room with the monitor. He wasn't there because he knew I was very, you know, I wasn't as comfortable. I felt very vulnerable. Ameel was very conscious of the fact that I was nervous. Like as we cut, he would just throw the sheets over my head. You know, it was so it really was the most difficult part of shooting the film. But what I learned from that, and my life lesson from doing this film, is learning to be comfortable, vulnerable.
I'd put that,
yeah. Rum will do that to you, though. You know what I mean?
Is he here?
No, I have nothing to add to that.
You've got nothing to add.
Next question.
Do you know what? We have to wrap. Do you know what? Can we go, last question over here quickly.
Okay, so old school film. Did anyone nick any props?
Me.
Any of you?
I did. I nicked the turntable that you see at the end of the film when Dee's on the deck, when Dee's on the stage, and Darkers, the African character, is putting on a tune. That turntable is in my yard. It's a relic.
Think anything?
Yeah, I'm not going to say because I don't want them to take it back. It's a very important
You got the best one.
What is it? What was it?
I can't tell you.
The moped.
Tell me.
I can't.
it's a really great prop from a really phenomenal actor in the film. And I really like what he did, and he was kind of my boss in the movie. I'll leave it at that.
I didn't get any.
You got a cane, the
I
hat.
wanted all the clothes and the shoes, but they're like, no, you can't have the clothes and
What
the
about
shoes.
the jackets as well? The jacket, that D jacket. Got that, yeah.
I didn't get anything. One thing I did get though, which was priceless, when I just got to London, I didn't know what the climate was like here. So I was freezing. I brought like a little, in Jamaica, it's sunny all the time. You see the melanin, it's just vitamin D all the time. So I brought like a little sweater, and we're in a room and we're chilling, and Idris was like, are you cold? I was like, yes. And he gave me his jacket, his director's jacket with like director Idris Elba. And I brought it back to set. I was like, here's your jacket. And he's like, no, you can have it. So I think that's my gift from set. Yeah.
All right, let's say thank you so much to the cast. Ameen, Shantol Jackson, and Idris Elba, OBE. Thank you lot for coming out.
I just want to say a big thank you to One Extra. Big up One Extra for looking
Thank you,
after
man.
us.
Thanks
Thank you
for having
so
me.
much,
Thank
man.
you.
Love.